I'll start from the left and I'll work my way down to the right. And if there is any questions as we go, just fire away. So I didn't want to make this too complicated. I just want to keep it simple and relevant. And like I said, you might already know some of the things I'm going to tell you. But yeah, the idea is for this to just be open and informal. Yeah. So I guess come on in. So I'm going to start with the bat controller. So have you guys seen this yet? Have you had it run through or had a run through on the features of this unit?
Pretty much.
Yep. Yeah, I guess you would have, Mudgy. So I guess just on this is our current DC controller. There's been a number of DC controllers released on the market over the years. We've had we've had another one which you're familiar with, which is distributed through a different channel, so kind of left you in a position where you didn't really have anything from us until now. So with the BAT, ESP, BAT being battery, BT Bluetooth, you can see there's no screen on this controller. So the previous model that we had was all programmed with buttons on the controller. This is IP68 rated, so it is fully potted, and when you hold this thing, you can actually feel that it's quite weighty. It is waterproofed, so it's designed where this can sit in a valve box, and if the box is filling up with water, a lot of moisture in there, it's protected. Okay, so most DC controllers take the 9-volt alkaline battery. So the 9V unit that we've got, which has the screen, takes two 9-volt batteries, which we estimate will give you about 2-year lifespan. With the BAT, so the BAT has this battery pack with 4 AA's on it. So we estimate up to 5-year lifespan by going down this path. So much longer lifespan out of the batteries. And with the battery housing, it doesn't matter which way this goes in, as long as you find the slot and drop it in. And what you'll hear, I've wired up a solenoid coil to this, but once I screw the cap on, you'll hear the solenoid click in a moment. So what that was doing is, with a lot of DC controllers, or DC solenoids, if you're retrofitting a DC solenoid onto an old valve or a current valve where you've taken off the AC solenoid, you screw the DC on, it's not uncommon for the plunger to already be in the open position, because it's just like a magnet that latches open. And often what happens with a DC system, they thread the coil on the valve, they turn on the water supply, and the system's running. And you often get calls saying, this thing's not turning off. And that's all because the plunger is held open by magnetic force. So what you normally have to do is manually do an on pulse to the coil, and then manually send an off pulse so the plunger resets, and that'll shut the valve off. What we recommend with the BAT is installing the coils on your valves first, wire the system up, and then you put the batteries in, and every valve, it'll just do an on and off pulse to make sure that plunger is seated in the off position.
So install the coil first, and then have it all plumbed up, and then
batteries last. Yeah, and that's just that's I guess a feature just to ensure that the plunger is off, and that when you turn the water supply on, the valves aren't going to be constantly running. And that might be something you'll get questions from customers, not necessarily our DC system, any DC system on the market. If they've retrofitted a DC coil, it's quite common for that to happen, where it'll just be running because that plunger's open. So yeah, with the BAT, this all operates off our new app 2.0. So I know I've done a bit of controller training in the past, but you'd be familiar with the current app that we have, which is for Wi-Fi, which I'll talk about with these other units. So what we have is app 2.0. And app 2.0 is what we use right now for the BAT. So when you take a look at this unit, you can see there's like a QR code on the top. You can get your phone and scan that code, and it'll just walk you through a quick setup guide. Or alternatively, we can go to the app here and hit add controller, and we can add another battery controller in. And you can see the RC2 is also set up on app 2.0. Eventually, all the controllers are going to get rolled into app 2.0. And there's a bit more involved with that to do with our central control platform, IQ4, where these controllers will work on that platform as well.
So the old platform, you need to create a new login with a new platform?
You just use your IQ4 login details for app 2.0.
Yeah, so my app for my controller, so already logged in. So with what I just downloaded.
That's the original app.
Can I log in, or do I need to create a new account?
You've already got app 2.0, have you?
I just downloaded it then.
Okay, so if you log in, it'll just ask you for your IQ4 user credentials. And once you enter that, you're into app 2.0.
There you go.
Yeah, yep. So this controller, it's available as a 1, 2, 4 and 6 station. You can see we've got, this one's a 2 station. So what we have is, one red wire for station 1, one for station 2, black is your common wire. We do have a dedicated master valve wire, and you can hook up like a rain sensor or soil sensing device to this unit if you wish. So DC controllers typically used where you just don't have access to AC power. Yep. Can be installed in the valve box. Cable runs, you can't run the cable as far with DC. If you're using 0.5mm cable, typically with an AC system, you can run your 0.5 to a valve, round figures say 100 metres, it's normally a bit more. With this, if you're using 0.5, I think it's about 15 metres, 1mm cables up around about 30 metres, so you can't run it as far from the controller to a valve, but in most cases, a DC controller is installed in the valve box with the valve itself. So you're only talking a little bit of cable. So I mentioned that QR code for setting up, or you can just go add controller. So with the app 2.0, you can have multiple battery units on this. I'll just tap on this. This will just access the program data for this controller. Okay, so when you take a look at the app, you can see here in bold red, irrigation suspended. So it's telling us that we've got an electronic error. If I just tap on that, you can see that this being a 2-station unit, there's the master valve, which is shaded grey. So this displays solenoid health. So the reason that's shaded grey is I turned it off. I've made it inactive. Station 1 is green, so we know that that's all good. Green is good, but red is telling us we've got a problem. And if I just tap on that, it's telling us we've got an open circuit. And obviously that's because I've got nothing wired up to it. So that's why it's coming up with open circuit. On that, I actually done this by mistake one time. I pulled this out the box and station 1 was coming up with an error, even though I had the solenoid hooked up. And the reason it come up with an error, the 2 wires, because I've just twitched them, they were touching. Yeah, so it come up with an error. On that, see these 3 dots up the top? If I just tap on that, you can do like a raster wire test, much like what we can do on the commercial controller. And when you do the wire test, it actually checks the output on every station. Yeah, and when I done that, after I separated the wires and I'd done the raster test, you can hear that clicking, it reverted back to normal.
Raster test is? So raster test, basically if you've got issues out in the field, like there's valves that aren't working or something like that, you can run a raster test and it'll send a signal out and basically it'll give you an idea of this station here, that's having issues. So whether it's open loop or...
Yeah, could be a bad, like a bad wire joint, corroded wire joint, just anything that's compromised the electrical side of it in the field, it reports it back.
Yeah, you'll be able to go, okay, everything's all good bar this one, or I've got multiple issues in the field. So.
Yeah, so we can rest a wire test on a DC controller. I don't know of any other DC that does that. Yeah. Okay, with the programming, for those of you that have used the app for Wi-Fi, it's somewhat similar, but if I just tap on next irrigation, you can see up here we've got options for your water days, odds, evens. You've got your calendar day, being your 7-day calendar. So if I want to add Friday as a water day, I can just tap on it. If you want to remove it, you just tap it and it just removes that day. You've also got the option for cyclic irrigation, which is just repeat watering. So, if you just want to repeat water every 4 days, that's where that comes in. Otherwise, your custom irrigation is Sunday through to Saturday. Yeah. Are you familiar with odds and evens? Have you guys had that explained to you before, what that means? So odd watering is the odd dates of the month. It's essentially every second day. If you select odd watering, it waters on the 1st, the 3rd, the 5th, and so on. Evens, it's the 2nd, 4th, the 6th. So it's every second day. I don't know many people that use either of those, to be honest. It's typically a 7-day calendar. With your station start times, so you can see here we've got start time. I've got one set at 1 a.m. I can tap on that and you can just toggle to change your times, pretty straightforward. And with your station run times, you've got an option for hours, minutes and seconds. So up to 9 hours run time. So we can do pulse irrigating with seconds as well, if that was needed. So yeah, look, pretty straightforward. Water days, start times, run times. You've got 4 programs with up to 8 starts on it. So there's quite a bit of flexibility in this unit as well. You've got monthly seasonal adjust. So I find this is more a feature that councils like, where they might want to just sort of pre-schedule the irrigation based on seasonal changes. So 100% means if you've set a station for 30 minutes, it's going to water for 30 minutes. You can double that by going 200% and it becomes 1 hour. So you can scale it down. So you might scale it down to say 70% of the expected water as it's cooling down. We're not getting as much hot weather, or as we increase in temperature, get a bit drier, they might scale it up 10, 20, 30%. So that's the idea of season adjust, is you can just scale your percentage of watering over the 12-month period. The other cool feature with BAT is we can map it. So you can see on here of that demo unit that I've got, I've just created a site for it. So you can locate it via map. So a lot of DC controllers, not so much in retail, domestic, but if it was a commercial install, could be nursing homes, councils again, they're installed in valve boxes out in the public area, often covered by ground cover, mulch. They can get lost or forgotten about. The map is just a nice way of being able to find where they're located. Without spending too much more time on it, that auto there, that's just like auto on a regular controller. So you've got your dial that's in auto. If you want to shut it down for a period of time where you turn it to off, on the app here, you just tap that to turn it off. Same sort of feature. We've also got, this is a bit repetitive, but you can go in here and just select your stations and have your stations active or inactive. You can do a quick screenshot of your program and have like an expanded view. So you can just check what program am I using, what station's on it, what are the water days, run times, start times. And if there is a percentage adjust applied, it displays it on the app. Manual run, if you just tap that little, sorry, I was a bit quick there, my apologies. If you just tap that arrow, that opens you up to 3 options for manual run. So a quick run is just a default 1-minute run time. It'll just run it for a minute, you can adjust that. Program run is like most controllers. If you do a semi-auto run, you might just want to run program A for the time that it's pre-programmed for. That's what that means. And custom run, you can just select a station or multiple stations, put in a runtime and just start it. You can have up to a 14-day rain delay in here. So if there is a pending weather event, you've got the option of toggling across, putting in a rain delay, uploading it to the controller so you know it's not going to work. You might say don't water for 4 days, so you know for those next 4 days it won't irrigate, and then the next scheduled start time, whether it's another day or 2 later, it'll resume as normal. This one here, this calendar icon, You can have pre-programmed up to 15 days as a non-water day. Probably not so much a feature that a homeowner would use, but, and again, I keep using councils as examples, but let's say a council has one of these installed. It's on a little pocket of turf, 6 stations, and it might be a little bit of turf where they have an outdoor wedding, for example, scheduled. So they can go onto the calendar and they might say, okay, on Saturday the 21st of April, we've got an event, a wedding, whatever, at this particular site. We don't want it to water. So rather than them trying to remember, oh, we've got to go to the controller and actually turn it off, you can enter that date in here and upload it in the controller, and regardless of what happens with the irrigation sequence or schedule that you've set, nothing will come on the 21st. You know it's not going to come on. So it's like a forward planning for events, day exclusion. So you can have up to 15 pre-programmed for a year, if that makes sense. So there's some extra features that this has. Sorry, that's probably been a bit long-winded, but to keep it simple with your schedule, it's just like most controllers. Have your water day set, your start time, your run time, that's keeping it simple, but there's some other stuff we can do.
Perfect.
And just on that, you can see I've got a second unit set up on here. You can program, you can make changes to programs for multiple units on this app. And if you haven't yet gone to the controller and uploaded that program change, it'll show this little orange circle, much like with IQ, there's the sync icon. So that's telling us that, this controller's had some program changes. However, it hasn't been uploaded to the controller. So you know you've got to go out to that controller and upload. If you can't get there yourself, if you've got a team member that you can share it with, you can tap on these 3 circles and share the controller, so you can actually send it to someone else and say to them, can you just go out and upload the program? So it's good if you're a manager who's operating with a team that are maintaining sites that have these installed. You can send them out and get them to make the change. Yeah, that works both ways. Someone can send a controller to you and you can have a look at it. They might say, there's something I'm not sure about with the programming settings. They can actually share that with you, and they might only give you 24-hour access, for example, but you can have a look at what they've set in that unit. I've done that with Wi-Fi.
That's obviously the ultimate is having that on IQ.
Yeah.
Ultimately, but that's just the next best thing is being able to do that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that will go onto IQ. Yeah, it's coming. Another version. I think it's going to be like Bat Pro, something like that, but it's coming. So yeah, that sharing feature is pretty good. It's a good feature. The other thing you can do, I'm almost done with this, sorry, I know I'm spending a lot of time on Bat, but it's a really good product. You can filter. Oh, sorry, I will step back. See how there's a little blue icon there? That's telling us we're within Bluetooth range. That's this one here. If it's red, we're out of range. And that Bluetooth range is typically 10 to 15 meters between the app and your controller. This little filter icon up here, if I tap on that, and I mentioned programming, making changes to a controller. Let's say you're a user that's got 20 of these out in the field. You've made changes to maybe 4 controllers. You've got to remember, what 4 did I make the changes to? So you can simply hit the filter and just say, what have I changed that has a sync available? And you apply that, and it'll list those controllers only at the top of the app. So then you know, they're the ones I've got to go upload. So you can filter as well, which is pretty cool. And when you look at the filter options, there's a number of options as to what you can do with that filtering. Yeah. Are there any questions on that?
That was good.
You can keep it simple, but it can do a lot.
Is there any, because I know with the Hunter nodes, they have a mounting bracket.
Righto, yep.
With them, especially for
Yeah.
those who don't want to have it in the box.
Yeah, so what we don't have a bracket as such. We've got that screw hole through the back, and you can see there's a little slot through here. So what we offer is in the box, there's a zip tie. So if someone wanted to zip tie it through the bolt hole, if you're not putting in a locking bolt, that's where you'd use that. Or there's a tech screw in there. So if you want to just tack that into the side of the valve box, or in the lid of the valve box, you can then hook it on. Yeah, so it's just a screw.
Okay.
Yeah, and our VB commercial valve boxes have actually got a dedicated mounting point for that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it'll operate, obviously 9-volt DC latching solenoids. I've got a Rainbird DV coil fitted on here. It'll operate other brand DC coils as well. So if there's existing valves out there, they might not be a Rainbird valve. As long as they've got a 9-volt DC latching coil, that system will operate it. So it's compatible with other valves, other coils. Yeah.
Cool.
I could be cheeky and say it works better with Rainbird valves, but just being honest, it works with other alternatives out in the market. So yeah, that's the bat. Going from DC, AC. So you're all pretty familiar, I think, with TM2. Yep, so TM2 very much is our entry-level controller, domestic controller. This is available as a 4, 6, 8 and 12 station. I know you guys have your work and display board here. Yep, okay, so when you take a look at this unit, you can see the terminal strip. So this one's a 6 station. We've got stations 1 through to 6. That yellow wire there, that's there if you want to put in a rain switch or like a soil sensor. Are you familiar with the wiring of a system? With how you wire up a system? Have you guys gone through that at all? When you wire up a solenoid valve and you've got your common wire, the common wire has to loop to every valve, and then you've got single wire for station 1, 2, etc. So when you look on here, you've got your common connection. So if you were using, say, a black wire as your common, going to every solenoid, that would come back to here, and then you've got your individual stations after that. Programming on this is pretty straightforward. There's a lot of crossover between controllers on the market, whether it's Rainbird or other manufacturers. The terminologies are much the same, and programming is much the same. It's just some products have a little bit of a difference or a niche feature over the others. You'll notice with this, there's no facility for a battery, so it doesn't require a backup battery. So no need for a 9-volt battery. It's got a non-volatile memory, which is up to 100 years. So yes, way too much, but it's good. So yeah, we've got our 240-volt power coming in, and the transformer converts it down to 24-volt output at the terminal strip. With this particular controller, you've got your program select button up here. So we've got 3 programs on this controller, A, B, and C, and you can have up to 4 start times. So on that, when you look at the blue section, and this is pretty common across the Rainbird controllers, whether it's these or our commercial controllers, the initial program settings or setting up of the controller is done through the blue section. So you have your date and time, where you set today's, your current date, time. But from there, it's just really 3 things. Setting the start time that you want to turn the system on, the run time, so how long each valve's going to run for, and then the water days. Pretty much what I just showed you on that app with the bat. They're just the 3 things you've got to know. The 3 programs, A, B, C. So where you would use that is you might have a 6-station controller, you might have 3 stations that are lawns, and possibly 2 that are gardens, which might be a drip system. So you can separate those so they're not watering on the same days. So for example, your lawns, you might want them watering twice a week, Monday, Thursday, for example. So you'd set program A, you might put in a start time, it might be 1 a.m, and then you set your water days for that Monday, Thursday as on, and it might be stations 1, 2, and 4 that are lawns. So on program A, you would only set run times for stations 1, 2, and 4, which might be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. You only need the one start time. Now, I know I said 1 a.m. as an example. So what would happen on the given water day at 1 a.m., it'll turn on station 1, water for the time you set. As soon as that finishes, moves on to the next station. That'll run for its 20 minutes, time out, run station 4. Program B, you might use for the other stations, which could be drip irrigation. You might want them coming on once a week only. So that's where the 2 programs come in. You can separate lawn and garden. I might be telling you some stuff here you already know, so apologies. So yeah, B can be gardens, which might be Sunday. That comes on at 10 p.m. And you might run a drip system, which could be running for an hour or something like that. The start time example that I gave with program A, this is a common thing that you'll get, and you've probably had it already. You're going to get the odd homeowner that's going to phone you up, and they're going to say, I've set my irrigation, my lawns have watered, and they've started and they're watering again. And what they've typically done is, when you have a look at the dial on here, guys, you've got your run times, which is how long the stations run for. So getting back to that example of the start times, where I was leading with that is you only need one start time. The valves, they work sequentially. So it is quite common for someone to phone up to say that, yep, my system ran and now it's running again. So what they've done is, where it says start times, they've confused that, thinking, if I've got 3 valves that are my lawn and they're coming on at 1 a.m, for example, they'll put in 1 a.m. start time, and then they'll say, that's running for 20 minutes. I've got to do another start time for valve 2 at 1:20 and so on. That's not actually correct. So what that does, it'll stack the start time and it'll just keep triggering. It'll just repeat the watering. The purpose of multiple start times and this having 4 start times per program is, if you're establishing new turf, you might want to water it 3-4 times in a 24-hour period to keep that moisture on, help the turf get established. Or you might have maybe undulating terrain. So rather than running a lawn zone for say 30 minutes and the water might start pooling and running off, you might run it for 15 minutes and just give it a bit of a time, give it time for the water to soak, and then run it again. So,
or a trick for people that have issues with pockies in their toilet turf, and run multiple start times for like 2 minutes just to scare birds off the lawn.
Yeah. And with those start times, so as I said, it's 4 per program. You can assign a station to every program. So effectively, being that it's 3 programs, you could have up to 12 start times in 24 hours. So, and that all comes down to specific irrigation needs, but the basics are pretty straightforward. Does that make sense? I know I'm probably waffling on a little bit here, just trying to give a few examples, and I've spent a lot of time on BAT and this, but the rest of it kind of just flows. So the other thing with this is, I need my glasses. If you have a look down here, we do have an icon for the sensor, so you can select whether the sensor is active or inactive. Seasonal adjust. So this controller has seasonal adjust, which is that feature I mentioned with the BAT before, where you can scale up or down the percentage of water runtime. And then you've got your manual watering as well. So with manual watering, you might run a program. So where that might come in, you might have been at work for a day, it's got rather hot, you get home and think, yeah, my lawn could really do with another water. You can go to manual watering, and if it was program A, just say, I just want to run program A. And if you start it manually and turn the dial back to auto, it'll run the stations for the pre-programmed time. And once it's completed, it'll just stop as normal. So you don't have to go back and change anything. Or if you just want to run a station or a couple of stations for any purpose, you can do a single station manual operation. And then you've got the off icon, which is just just shutting it down. Maybe for winter, you just turn it to off, nothing's going to come on. In here, we've got the accessories port. So this accessories port is takes the Link Wi-Fi module. So this controller can operate as a standalone controller, meaning everything you set is done at the controller, or you can add the Link module and then have that Wi-Fi compatibility as well. If you do use the Link module and you're setting it all by Wi-Fi, it works both ways. If you come to the controller, you can still operate at the controller, you can make changes at the controller, and whenever you connect via the app, it'll just upload any of those changes. So it's two-way. Yep. Any questions? No? All right, so that's the TM2. Moving down, we've got the RC2. And keeping this simple, all the programming features of the RC2 are exactly the same as the TM2. So same number of programs, same number of start times, same length of runtime, which is up to 6 hours. Everything's the same, non-volatile memory. The only difference is, I'll just take that off, is we can't program it at the controller because it's purely a Wi-Fi controller. And we supply this as an 8-station controller only. So I mentioned TM2 is 4, 6, 8, and 12. RC2, we just do it as an 8-station only. But for those that just want to operate via Wi-Fi through an app only, that's ideal. From a price perspective, the 8-station TM2 and 8-station RC2, they're the same price. The difference is this already has the Wi-Fi built into it, whereas with the TM2, you've got to pay the difference for the Wi-Fi module. That's your cost saving. If you go RC2, you're not having to use that Link module. But yeah, I don't really need to talk about that too much because it's the same features. You've just heard it all there, unless there is any questions you have on that. No? Okay. So moving on from there, guys, we now have the ESP ME3. So when you look at the ME3, just a slightly larger looking box, but similar looking interface with the color scheme. But the difference with this controller is it's modular. So this is supplied as a base 4-station controller, and then we can build it up with expansion modules. So we have a 3-station module and a 6-station expansion module. So you can build it up to 22 stations, so 4 to 22. So it fits in with domestic and really some commercial applications as well. It also takes the Wi-Fi module, and you'll notice this one, I do have a battery plugged into it. This controller still has the non-volatile memory, so if there was a power failure, you're not going to lose the time of day, you're not going to lose any program information, it'll be retained in the memory. The idea of that battery is you can unplug the ribbon cable and take this module off, and you could sit inside your lounge room and put a battery in and just do all your programming at the panel and then take it out to the controller if you wanted to. I don't know anyone who does that, but really that's the purpose of the battery, that's all it serves. So you don't necessarily need to install a battery in one of these when it's hooked up to power. Similar programming features to the TM2, some subtle differences. It's got 4 programs. So A, B, C, and D, so we've got a lot more program option there. And you have up to 6 start times per program, whereas that one was 4. But the run times are the same, 1 minute to 6 hours per station. This controller has a bigger transformer in it. And I failed to mention it before, but with the other controllers, you can only operate 1 solenoid valve at a time, plus the optional, like a master valve or a pump start. With ME3, you can have two solenoid valves operating at once, as well as a master valve or a pump start. Where you might use that is you might have a solenoid valve out the front operating drip irrigation, another solenoid valve out the back operating drip irrigation, and you may have the volume of water may allow you to run both those valves at once. So you could essentially have them wired into the one terminal, and it's just saving you one station output at the controller, but also reducing the water window runtime.
Can you run two master valves or one master valve?
You can. You can. I actually had someone ask me that question just recently. Yeah. So yes, you can. Yep. With the ME3, we have the option to add a flow sensor. So we've got the FG100 flow sensor here. So if you wanted to incorporate a flow sensor with this controller, we do have the sensor terminal point up here. And when you install a flow sensor into this unit and activate it, it'll want to do a learned flow. So the first time that you run the system, it's learning how many litres per minute every station is using. And it'll save that information where you can use that to set your base parameters for low flow or high flow alarm events. So the idea of that flow sensor is if you, for example, had a solenoid valve that just didn't shut down, it's going to get to a point where it detects, hang on, this is now using more flow than what it should be. It'll send an alarm and hopefully shut it down, but if it can't shut it down, it should shut down if there's a master valve, but it will alarm to let you know that there's an event, a high flow event or a low flow event.
You can only use that flow sensor on the ME3s. Can you use it on
that one's for the ME3s, yeah. Yep. Those other controllers don't accept the flow sensor. Yeah, only the ME3. Yep. Yeah, and same as the TM2, the programming's all the same based on date and time. You can see with the battery, this one's lit up so you can actually see your display, and it's quite user intuitive. So whatever is flashing, you press the plus, you can increase, minus, decrease the icon, press the right arrow and it just moves across. So it's a very easy unit to set. I don't know, you've set one of these? Yeah, they're pretty straightforward, aren't they? A lot of these controllers, you can set them without using a manual, and that's always a good sign. If you can program a controller without referring to the manual, that's a good thing. So we've got the, where it says weather sensors, this is where you can actually set up like a rain switch or a soil moisture sensor. The flow sensor settings is done over here. We also have the season adjust feature that I've mentioned already with the other units. And the same, manual watering off. Pretty simple. Any questions? No? Cool. I just wanted to show you the ESP2 wire. This is a new product that we've released. So what Rainbird has done, they've taken the ME3 and redesigned it so that we can turn it into a 2-wire decoder system. So this can operate up to 50 stations. So same looking panel, but when we pop it open, you can see it's not like an expandable unit like the ME3. We've got a module in here, and it's a 2-wire system. So you'd be familiar with some of the decoder systems that are out there, 2-wire systems. Have you heard that sort of terminology before? Essentially what it is, with those controllers, we're using multi-core wire. So I guess an example there is if you had 4 solenoid valves in one valve box, you need 5 core cable for these units. 1 wire being that common wire, and then the other 4 for stations 1, 2, 3, 4. With the ESP2 wire, we can use standard multi-core wire, but we only need to use 2 of the wires. So how this works is you've got your cable running out in the field. This is a decoder, and and we grab the two blue wires. So one blue wire will connect to one wire and the other blue to the other. So I've wired up black and blue off this cable loom, and the other two wires connect up to your solenoid valve. So you're not using multi-core wire, so you can run some pretty decent long run lengths. We can have longer run lengths of cable using a decoder system. But as I said, up to 50 stations, and it's easy to add on down the track. If you want to add stations on, you just connect into that 2-wire path with a decoder. And this acts as the device communications between the controller and the solenoid valve. Our current commercial decoder system, we use what's called maxi cable. So like it's a dedicated cable that we manufacture, or that is manufactured for 2-wire systems, heavier gauge. We do recommend grounding in the field for protection against lightning surge protection. With ESP2 wire, you don't have to ground the field wiring. It's optional if you wanted to, but it's not necessary. Each decoder is supplied in a box where it's basically numerical order. So these decoders all have like a 5-digit unique code. So they're installed in the box in numerical order. So the contractor, for example, can grab this and write, that's going to be station 1, this will be station 2, and so on. Because what happens is when you install these and you go to the controller and turn it on, it does do an auto search, like an auto, what's the term I'm looking for? I've just had a blank. It'll automatically assign the decoders to a station, but it's done in that numerical order. So the lowest number on the decoder will automatically be assigned to station 1. The next one will go to station 2, and so on. You can change that later if need be, but it will do an auto search. And when it's doing an auto search in field, when it first powers up, this will light up blue, and then it will start flashing blue as it's just doing the search and assigning your decoders to each station. And then from there, you can just program this unit exactly the same as you would on the ME3. It's easy. You program that, you can program the 2-wire the same. This also gives you diagnostics at your decoder. So when a station is active, this will light up green, it'll have a green light. Or if there's, say, like an open circuit or even a short circuit, it'll be red. So there is a reference to that on the decoder here, so it tells you what it's doing. So blinking green, station active, blinking red, solenoid wiring open, solid red, solid blue, that's the power measure mode. But yeah, you can see it's got a reference on there, so it does give you diagnostics at the decoder itself. So are there any questions on that? I'm probably waffling on a little bit. I guess this is good for anything up to 50 stations. Using standard multi-core, you can retrofit existing systems. You know, if they've got a system where maybe the controller is, say, a 12 station, but they're going to add on to it, it might make sense to maybe go down the path of offering an ESP2 wire, and then they can just use some of the existing wire in the field, pick 2 wires, they can extend on that, add different stations on, if that makes sense. So it's not just necessarily limited to new installs, but could be used for retrofits. Yeah. And Wi-Fi compatible too. So all of these can operate off Wi-Fi. Yeah. Any questions on that? It's probably a lot that I've covered today. But if there's any questions, just ask. You've got my number, reach out anytime if there's anything else you need to know or want to know. And I've always said it before, whenever I come in here, if you want to pull me aside, spend some time with me, just picking my brains, or if you want to spend time with me on a controller where we plug it in, power it up, go through the programming, always happy to do that. How are we going for time, guys? Are we okay at the moment? Yeah. Is there anything you want to know? Do you want me to cover off anything on the Wi-Fi? by way of troubleshooting or anything like that? Do you get many people asking you about the Wi-Fi and people ringing up saying, oh look, I've tried to connect up Wi-Fi and it just won't connect? Is that anything you've come across often?
One thing, oh sorry.
I've only had it once, and it was just a matter of they needed to reset the Wi-Fi module to then connect to their phone. So that was the only thing, because it wasn't, I think, syncing correctly with the controller.
Okay.
So yeah, they just had to actually just hold down on the
hard reset.
And then they're like, oh yeah, cool, now it's all connecting.
Good.
So yeah, I've only ever had it once so far.
Okay. Yeah, we get a number of inquiries come through our helpline, typically regarding Wi-Fi, and often it's someone just saying, I can't connect. And then we've just got to work through the processes. May be beneficial, but with our Wi-Fi, just so you know, with the router, our Wi-Fi works on channels 1 through to 11. It's got to be a static channel. So I've had, it's only happened maybe 5-6 times where the homeowner's router was on auto channel search and our Wi-Fi just won't pick it up. So it has to be a static channel between 1 and 11. The Wi-Fi signal strength, the RSSI reading, we're sort of between the 0 and negative 71 dBm. If it's within that range, then it should work. If it was, say, 75, 78, 80 dBm, then it's going to be unreliable, unlikely that they'll connect. How can people find this out? And I've done this training with contractors. You know, contractors will go out to a home, they're talking about a controller to the homeowner, they want Wi-Fi. Most people just assume a domestic dwelling is going to work fine, but not necessarily. It could come down to where is the controller located. So look, just on that, what I want to show you, this is just good to know because it allows you to provide some good advice if people do need help. This app, Airport Utility, if you've got an Apple device, it's Airport Utility. If you're running Android, Wi-Fi Analyzer, and I've got documentation I can share on this. But the idea of this is with Airport Utility, you can open that up. So you can be standing at the site where the controller is going to be located, and you can tap on Wi-Fi scan. And if I hit scan, this allows, I guess, contractor, homeowner, whoever it is, to just make a decision before they commit to know whether their Wi-Fi is going to work or not. So if I take, let's see, I've got a few coming up here. There's a Waterpro one. I'll grab the Waterpro guest. Okay. Oh, no, I don't want that one. Hang on a sec, that one. There it is, Waterpro Wi-Fi. Here we go. Okay, so when you look on here, so I've just done a scan maybe for what, 15 seconds? And obviously you've got this will pick up any Wi-Fi within range, but you can tap on your Wi-Fi, and when you look on here, see the RSSI reading up the top? So that RSSI reading, it's showing negative 59 dBm. We know that's within the range of what our Wi-Fi works on. As I said, it's up to negative 71 dBm. Above that can be troublesome. The other one is the channel. You can see it's operating on channel 1, so we know that's okay. If you done a scan and it was channel 13, our Wi-Fi is not going to pick it up. So I've had that happen a few times as well, where the router hasn't been working within the range of our Wi-Fi, and that requires the homeowner to go into the computer, access the settings of the router, and they can physically change the channel. They're probably just two things you need to know. They're the most two common things that we come across is channel and Wi-Fi signal strength. What I'll do, I'll send you some information that I've got on this as a document. It's just handy to have as a reference. It's just nice if you can advise and tell people. If you do get those calls, it's just something that you can guide them. Sorry, I've been long-winded, but I hope it makes sense what I've been saying. Yeah.
Talk about the Resources app.
The Resources app is good. Yeah. It's this. It's that one there with the sprinkler icon. Yeah. So yeah, as Mudgy was saying, it's good. You can tap on products, and it's got a whole listing of Rainbird products. If you want to know a little bit about these controllers, you can tap on controllers, and then it'll ask you, do you want to go to traditional controllers, 2-wire controllers? But you can go in there and there's technical information, there's just general dot point features, YouTube videos. The YouTube videos are good because they're actually videos of basic programming. How do you set a program? There's a lot of information. So yeah, if you haven't got the resources app set up, it's worth downloading and having a bit of a play around with it. Yeah, alrighty. Cool, thanks guys.